We're glad to have you back.
Yes, we are.
Okay, is it time? All right, now,
You're good.
there they are. Start to say, where are my glasses? Or we
I'm not
won't be
sure.
doing anything.
Not sure they're live yet.
We're live?
Good to go? Okay, well, good morning. Let's call our meeting to order. This is our last meeting of, well, we think, our last meeting of 2021, our last regular meeting anyway, and we certainly hope it's our last meeting. I have asked this morning for Dr. Bass to lead our pledge, and Dr. McGehee is going to lead our invocation. So if you would stand with us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please pray with me. Heavenly Father, we praise you for your goodness and your generosity. We trust you for faithfully preserving us through good times and bad. We serve you with all that we have. We glorify you in our plans and our activities. We ask for your guidance today as we discuss as a collective body the important decisions that we have before us to provide the best possible outcomes for our young people and educators across our state. We celebrate the anticipation of the coming Christmas blessings and the forgiveness of all of our sins. Lead us in what we do. Amen.
Okay, well, it's nice to have everybody back around the table and so we can look at each other in the eyes. We discuss things. The only person we have joining us via live stream is Dr. Barrett, who's online with us. She is in the middle of exams and so can't be in person. And Amy is in the middle of her exams at MSMS, so needless to say, she's not with us either, but everyone else is here, and we're pleased with that and glad that we could make it. Our first item for action is approval of the minutes from November the 12th, 2021. You all have received a copy of those. Do we have a motion related to them?
I'll
Mr.
make a
Jacobs?
motion that we approve the minutes from
Okay.
the board meeting of 2021.
Okay, I'm going to give you the second then. Mr. Jacobs got it first, so. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Do you have any additions or deletions on the agenda that you have in front of you? Okay. Are there any items on the consent agenda that you would like to pull out individually for discussion?
I want to make sure I understand what you're asking. I have a question. I've been approached on the, on one of the items.
Okay, on the consent agenda. Tell me what number it is.
Okay, it would be the MDE contracts, number 4. It's an action plan?
Yes, right. Is there a specific one that you've,
No,
or all of them?
It's really all of them.
Okay,
You mean 4A through
yeah.
K? All of them?
Well, it's the ones that, let me see, I'm trying to find exactly where it was. They were the supplementary language arts, and the different programs.
Well, I tell you, okay,
I'll wait till we get there.
yeah, I was going to say, if you don't want it pulled out to be voted on separately, we'll just discuss that when we get
Okay,
to
that's
that,
fine.
if that's okay with you.
Oh, that's fine with me.
Okay, yeah, just don't forget it. Okay, then, if there are no really changes or deletions to the agenda, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion is second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move into the report of the state superintendent.
All right, thank you. Good morning to everybody. So this past month, had a number of meetings that took my attention. Obviously, the first is the National Assessment Governing Board. That is the governing board that governs the National Assessment of Education Progress. That is the nation's one and only assessment that is administered in every single state. The last time that was administered was in 2019. And as you well know, Mississippi was the only state in the nation that showed improvements in both 4th and 8th grade. We were ranked actually number 1 in the nation for our gains in NAEP. So I say all that to say we're getting ready to administer that one more time. That starts again in January. So the NAEP team, the way it goes is the NAEP organization sends us, the people that administer the assessment, and CES sends us a list of all of the schools where the test is going to be administered, all of the grade levels that particular school will administer in both ELA and mathematics and science in grades 5 and 8 and biology. So what happens, people may not understand this, but this is not like our statewide assessments. Our statewide assessments are administered to every single child in grades 3 through 8, and then again in science and in language arts and in U.S. history. That's not like this test. This test is not a census test. This test is more of a sampling, and what they do is they select students that will reflect the demographic makeup of our state. So, and it's all at random. We have no idea until we get the list. And the other beauty of it is the State Department has nothing to do with it. So the National Assessment comes in, they administer the assessments, they pull back the assessments, they grade the assessments, and then they release the results. And typically those results are released in the fall. So we're getting geared up for that. I'm getting ready to send out a video around that so that the states or the districts and schools that are selected, we're asking that they show this video to kind of get everybody's head wrapped back around the fact that we're getting ready to administer this. It's really the gold standard of assessments, and it is what we refer to as the nation's report card. So this will be the first time since the pandemic that this assessment will be given, and then we'll know the results sometime around fall. So I kind of wanted to, the governing board has been very busy, let's put it that way. And we're getting ready to redo the science framework. So my science friends here at MDE will be getting involved in that and providing feedback to the National Assessment Governing Board on what their feelings are about that as well. I held my Principals Advisory Council. That's always very informative, and but I've also got to say, at the end of it, I had to say to them, "You guys look so tired." I said, and they've got to be. I mean, you can only imagine the role of a principal during this pandemic. Having been a principal, and those of us that were principals know, it's hard enough when the holidays hit and you've made the run down from the fall. But boy, think about these past 2 years what our principals and all of our leaders and teachers have gone through. So, but they're faithful about attending these meetings. Our technical advisory committee met. We have just started discussions around what are we going to do in terms of growth for our accountability model. The accountability task force met for the first time on Wednesday. This task force is made up of principals and superintendents and teachers and other curriculum people, a few of our staff members. It is chaired by Dr. Chris Domaleski, who also chairs our technical advisory committee. And Alan Burrow serves kind of like as the co-chair, if you will. So they're going to be given a lot of that information to mull over, and we'll run impact data based on suggestions that they're making, and so we'll keep you posted on how that proceeds. And then I attended the Southern Regional Education Board State Leaders Forum. They're really looking at workforce development writ large, meaning across an entire state. And so we had some representatives from Kentucky that were responsible for that from the very beginning, and amazing information that we got from Kentucky. And I've got to say, Kentucky has the most amazing SLDS system, state longitudinal data system, that I've ever seen. And so it gives us a lot to think about around our own SLDS system that certainly needs to pick up some steam. I was served on a panel for CCSSO called Working with Legislators. So as everybody is getting ready to head into this legislative session, They asked those of us that work with our legislators so closely to talk to other brand-new superintendents, state superintendents, about what are the challenges, what are the successes, and how you maneuver that and build those relationships. I was also on Paul Gallo's show as well. That's always a joy. And for my recognition, first I want to recognize my communication team, because our communications team won 7 major awards from the Southern Public Relations Federation. The awards recognize top work produced by communication professionals in Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, and Mississippi. And our team earned Best of Tier award for the Mississippi Connects Communication Campaign, awards for writing, logo design, video production, the superintendent's annual report, and our Strong Readers website. So congratulations, Pete Smith, Jean, and Corey. If you would all please stand. Way to go! I tell everybody, anytime that anybody's asking about communications, I said, I've got the best. About communications, I said, I've got the best in the world. So you want to know something about my communications team, just call them and ask them. So I want to say that. And I also want to give a real shout out to both Dr. Gavin and Joe Goff, because what you may not know that happens behind the scenes, I mean, when you get your board book and you see all the stuff that you're going to be looking at, I cannot tell you the hours that are behind all that, and making sure that we're meeting the letter of the law, making sure that procurement procedures are being followed. There's so many eyes, there's so much time, there's so much energy, but the good news is it all benefits the state of Mississippi. And so the other chiefs are in there as well, because they've got projects as well. Paula's got projects, John's got a ton of projects with MSIS 2.0 coming online. But behind the scenes of really making sure that we've got legal eyes on it and procurement eyes on it, and you can imagine the number of hours it takes to review all of that, sits Joe Goff and Felicia Gavin. So I cannot tell you how much that means. And this is just round 1. You're going to be getting round 2 in January and round 3 in February. So lots more behind that, depending on the bucket of money that it's coming from. So we want to make sure that we are spending it wisely and spending it legally, and making sure that we get the biggest impact that we can across our state. So, Madam Chair, I'll give that back to you.
Thank you, very good.
Yeah.
I was thinking while you were talking about them getting ready for a meeting, Dr. McGehee and Mr. East especially know, if you've lived in the ever so often meeting world of every 2 weeks or once a month, you spend your life getting ready for a meeting, having the meeting, and cleaning up after the meeting. So there's never any end to it.
That's
So
right.
we do appreciate what you do. This last month has been pretty light. I met with Dr. Wright on a couple of issues that have been brought to my attention that she's working on. I also have spent a good bit of time, and I think this plays well to Amy and Micah and even Omar before he left, reading and looking at the data and what have you on student mental health. If you notice, that's really coming to the forefront more and more as the result of the pandemic. And I thought it really speaks well of our student representatives that all 3 of them during the course of the pandemic and afterwards have brought that issue up, because that's what they're hearing from their peers. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of that, and it's something I'm interested in. So I've spent some time following the information and reading and catching up on that. But we're going to ease into the end of the year, I hope, and everybody can take a break. Michael, do you have a report this morning?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Happy holidays. I want to give a quick report about how my school is conducting state testing and how dual credit classes are proceeding. So 2 weeks ago, dual credit and middle college students that take Jones College courses, had to take final exams. And I
Was
can
that a
say,
shock?
I started to say, was that you?
that was definitely me. And I can say for a fact that I'm very proud of the outcome and how students prepared for the final exams for the semester. And although it wasn't like the easiest workload, the outcome is very rewarding. Now, middle college students went to Jones last week to talk to their counselors about upcoming classes. So in the beginning, we were originally going to just get our associate's degree, but now we're able to get an associate's degree in whatever we choose to major in. And so I am going to be doing computer science. That's what I love. And another girl is majoring in business, and then everybody else is doing health science. So I'm very excited to see how well I performed this upcoming school year, and I'm very proud of how I performed last semester. For the dual credit program, new students will arrive to take Jones courses, and depending on their ACT score and their sub scores, the entire week at school for state testing was so hectic. Like, we kept on moving. Everybody was taking state tests in Algebra 1, Biology, U.S. History. And last year, students taking U.S. History, they didn't necessarily have to perform well enough to, like, pass. But now this year, the U.S. History teachers probably had to, like, really help their students in making sure they pass, because if they don't pass the U.S. History, then they can't proceed. So I know that the math, biology, and history teachers are working very hard with students, and I'm very proud of the teachers there. Also, speaking of great results, as we all may know, the application for the junior student representative is open, where upcoming juniors have to go through a vigorous application process. I would know. I'm very excited to see how these amazing groups of young people are determined to benefit Mississippi education and represent their schools. Also noted, Ms. Altman told me that she wants to hear more about the middle college program. So I'm very excited to say that next meeting, I'm going to have a very special treat to show about the middle college program.
Good, good.
Very good.
Tell me, what are your teachers at your high school
Mm-hmm.
doing to help students prepare? Are you having tutoring sessions? Do you
Yeah.
have, tell me kind of what the
Yeah,
process.
right now they are doing tutoring sessions, but they're also doing boot camps. So students, they can come, and their motivation is like a free grade or like couple of grades you can get if you come. And yeah, boot camps, we did that last year. It was very helpful in the state test, and we had good passing grades in that, so yeah.
Good, okay, very good. Well, you get a little break now before you have
Yes,
to.
that's a whole month.
Not that you're excited about that.
No.
Well, you are really, I guess, our first representative who's been able to do college courses and be able to report on it. Now, the others have taken a lot, well, of course, Amy, I guess, is doing a little of that, but the others have just been in accelerated classes and AP classes. So it's fun to hear about that and how well you're doing, and that you're studying real hard, I know.
All A's.
Oh, good for you. Well, I started to ask how you did, but I thought, no, she'll tell us if she wants us to know.
Yes, I will.
Well, good for you. Okay, subcommittee meetings, academic achievement, pre-K, early childhood, Mr. East?
Yes, ma'am. We met yesterday afternoon on Zoom, Dr. Elam and Mr. Miller. Great conversation. You've got on the board agenda today some topics along the strategic plan for computer science and where we're rolling that out, and the work that they're doing, and the integration plan they're putting together through Mississippi State and RCU. We also discussed the digital subscription work and have some information to put back. There was a lot about when could you opt in, when could you opt out. We've got a lot of those dates and things that we put out there on the piece. Also concerned that do you have to do away with the current program to do this? We put that to rest too, that you do not have to. So it's about being able to pick and choose on this digital service. For me personally, I think as a superintendent, the access by parents and families, this will be an important piece for us to, I'm going to say experiment with, because it's a pretty well-planned program, but be able to use and see if we can get some levels with parents being able to help their children in school. So two important topics, both of which will be on the agenda for approval today. So Dr. Benton, Ms. Clemens, Dr. Smith, great job on the presentation yesterday.
Good, good. Dr. Elam, educator quality.
Yes. Yesterday, Dr. Bass and Dr. Barnett, who's with us via Zoom, and I met to hear from the Office of Teaching and Learning. And the Office of Teaching and Learning has several items on the consent agenda, but and those are important that we approve those. We don't anticipate that there will be any issues. But importantly, during this meeting, we're going to have the opportunity to hear from the Office of Teaching and Leading and hear about just two of their projects. I don't want you to think that this is, to me, it's kind of advertised in the agenda as an overview of OTL, but it's real, they do a lot more than what you're going to hear about today. So I want to make that really clear that you're going to hear about two very interesting and very important projects that have been ongoing, and I'll leave the details to the people who've done the work.
Good, thank you. And then workforce, career, technical,
Yes,
Dr.
ma'am, we
McGee.
met prior to our meeting today. Dr. Benton led the meeting along with Dr. Brown, gave us a report on work-based learning from the career tech side, which is going to be on our agenda today, hopefully for approval. Very important message going forward to increase our workforce participation.
Okay, good. One of the things I failed to mention, although I had it in my notes, some of these things you'll hear in more detail. You know, we have a retreat planned for February 25th, and Dr. Wright and I have discussed some of the topics that we need to drill down. Some of these things that have come out of subcommittee work, we will discuss more in depth. But we look forward to that, and it'll be a pretty intense day, I think, in terms of just information. So I think you all have that on your calendar, but just as a reminder, we want to make sure we all get there. Okay, thank you all, committee chair, and our next items are action items. We'll move into the heart of the agenda. The first one is to begin public comment to revise the Perkins 5-state plan. This is related to work-based learning and CTE quality. Okay, Dr. Benton, you get to jump right in.
I do. All righty. All right. I think we have our technology working. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be working with you, Ms. Altman, Dr. Wright, members of the board. Our first item is related to Mississippi Perkins, what's Carl D. Perkins, number 5 state plan revision. As many of you may be aware, our state career and technical programs, K-12 and post-secondary, are funded under Carl D. Perkins at the federal level. And with that comes some requirements, one of which is that we have a CTE program quality indicator, at least one. Our plan, this is the 5th version, we've been implementing that for several years, and as part of that, we've really had a laser focus on industry certification, CTE dual credit, and work-based learning. Through the implementation process and in collaboration with business and industry, we've learned, and educators, of course, we've learned that work-based learning is really, really important. So what we're bringing forward to you today, and Dr. Brown will go into detail, is our recommendation for your consideration today to add a second indicator of program quality based on work-based learning. If you'll go to the next slide, you see that it fits squarely with goal number 2, but more importantly, it helps breathe life into the vision. We'll get to that one. Yep, the board's vision of having that world-class system where our students leave us prepared to be successful in career and in society and the workforce in general. So with that, I'll pass the presentation to Dr. Brown.
Good morning. So I will start with the federal definition of work-based learning. When Congress passed the new Perkins 5 legislation, it defined work-based learning. And as we've been working to build quality work-based learning programs across the state, this is the definition that we adhere to. That we have sustained interactions with industry and community professionals, because what we really want to happen with our work-based learning program is, to the extent practical and possible, our students leave the 4 walls of their high school and actually go on site to businesses and industries and get on-site training that will help them with their college and career goals. But we do understand that there may be some areas of the state that there could be challenges with identifying quality work-based learning opportunities. So Perkins allows us to simulate workplace environments as well, where we can create simulated workplace environments at the school site and then have business and industry come to the students to advise them just like they would at the business and industry. So this is the definition we're working with as we revise the Perkins 5 state plan. Just like we did with our initial Perkins 5 plan 2 years ago, we work with a Mississippi Perkins 5 task force that's made up of secondary and post-secondary CTE leaders, business and industry representatives, and other important individuals who come together and help us make decisions about what is best for the plan. So we started the process on July 20th of meeting with our Perkins 5 task force to include work-based learning as a measure of program quality. We met again on September 21st to finalize which programs that we have in CTE that would utilize work-based learning as a measure of program quality. And then we made our final recommendations for the revision to the state plan just last month on November 19th. So what you see today as far as the revision and timeline, this was all decided in conjunction with our Perkins 5 task force. And what we're really trying to do with this plan is we want to have quality work-based learning opportunities for our high school students that are equitable across the state and accessible to all of our students. So you'll see this image that we've created. We want to get to quality work-based learning, and we feel that can be accomplished with a focus on 3 important areas. One area being our Mississippi Work-Based Learning Operational Guide. That's like our curriculum framework for work-based learning. We're currently working with our partners at the Research and Curriculum Unit to update this work-based learning guide, and we will bring it to the board in February for initial consideration. And we think that because work-based learning is so important and it's ever-changing, that we will ask the board annually to review that guide. In 2020, our legislature passed the Mississippi Learn to Earn Act, which was a very important piece of legislation that allows for more pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship opportunities for our high school students. So we believe aligning what we're doing to that important piece of legislation helps get the quality work-based learning as well. And then the third important part is what we're talking about today, making sure that our Perkins 5 state plan is written in such a way that we get to quality work-based learning for our students. So what we realized, the justification for revising the plan is that 2 years ago, we chose industry certifications as our measure of program quality for Perkins 5. And industry certifications are still really, really important. But over the course of the last 2 years, as we've worked with our business and industry partners, they have also voiced to us that work-based learning is also important. So we want to make sure that our students, when they graduate high school, that they're best prepared for college and career. And to do that, we feel like that we need an accountability system for CTE that encompasses both work-based learning and the industry certifications. So the revisions to the plan itself are very, very minor to what we'll have to adjust there to include work-based learning. A lot of the work will be going on behind the scenes to make sure that we roll out everything like it should be in our school districts. But on the plan itself, we're adding work-based learning to pages 13, 14, pages 34, 35, and pages 47, which is where we're declaring that we want to use work-based learning as one of our measures of program quality. So with the change on page 13, 14, we would be adding number 6 at the bottom that says that one of our core indicators of performance for Mississippi CTE will be the percentage of our CTE concentrators who graduate high school having participated in quality work-based learning. And then on page 34, 35, we have to define the definition of our work-based learning program quality indicator and the numerator denominator on how we will score each of our school districts in terms of work-based learning. So you'll see that we're adding indicator 5S3 And to get to the final calculations, we'll look at the number of students who graduated from high school, having participated in work-based learning, divided by the number of CTE concentrators who graduated. That will give us that percentage that we use to measure each of our CTE programs in the state, but also that percentage will be sent to the feds where they rate us as a state on our performance in CTE. And then one of the most important changes to the plan will be on page 47, where again at the bottom, we're adding work-based learning program quality as a measure of performance for our CTE programs. And you'll notice that that will start with FY 2022. Now, for the federal government, they are always one fiscal year behind us. So their FY 22 is our FY 23. Their FY 23 is our FY 24. So this will start with us for the 22-23 school year and the 23-24 school year. So starting with next school year, we want to have 12% of our CTE concentrators graduating high school with a quality work-based learning experience. And then the second year, the 23-24 school year, we would want to increase that to 15. And just to give you a little bit of information where we've got those numbers, is that right now the states in the country who use work-based learning as a measure of program quality average 8 to 10% where they've set as their performance level. We feel like we've done a lot of great work in the state to be slightly above that. But also, we still want to be somewhat conservative because the pandemic did cause some challenges with our placements for students in work-based learning opportunities. That's starting to get better, but still a little bit of work to do there to increase those opportunities back to where they were pre-pandemic. And then also in the first year of rollout for the 22-23 school year, we're going to focus on 2 of our CTE pathways, being agriculture and healthcare, as the first 2 who will use work-based learning as the measure of program quality. Those 2 groups of students can account for about 1/3 of our CTE concentrators, and the goal is for about 1,000 to 1,200 of those students to do quality work-based learning. So we feel like we've set targets at a comfortable place to get started, but certainly increase those numbers as we go through the life of the Perkins 5 state plan and look toward Perkins 6. This is our timeline for the revision. What we're asking for your consideration today is to open a 60-day public comment period where we will gather feedback about the revision to the Perkins plan. We will gather feedback through our Mississippi Secedes email address, as well as 3 public feedback meetings that will be held in North, Central, and South Mississippi during the month of January. During the month of February, we will allow Governor Reeves to review the revisions to the Perkins 5 plan and get his input. This is a requirement that we have from the feds. And then in March of 2022, we will come back to the state board for your final approval of the revised plan. And then that revision would be submitted to the federal government in May for their approval. Once we receive their approval, we'll be able to implement for the 22-23 school year. So that is the end of our presentation on our recommendation to begin public feedback for this change to Perkins 5. And Dr. Benton and I will answer any questions you have now.
Any questions? Good presentation. Well, hearing none, you did a good job.
Thank you.
Or else we don't know what to ask one or the other. But we do need action on going out for public comment on this. So do we have?
So moved.
Okay, Dr. McGehee and Mr. Jacobs, okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Item 2 is approval of a 10-year strategic plan for computer science education.
As we're transitioning our slides, I think, Micah, it was exciting to hear of your interest in computer science. We were making eye contact across the room, and you've all received, I believe, at your seats, a copy of the computer science plan, a nice slick version of that versus the one that you were mailed. And as Ms. Clemens is joining me to present this item, Wendy Clemens, who is our Associate Superintendent in Secondary Education and Career Technical Education. And we also have with us Dr. Shelley Hollis from the Center on Cyber Education at Mississippi State University. So I see some of you know her very well, too. So we appreciate the partnership, and I think that you picked that up with the first item about how within our department, we're working with other entities outside the department. Collaboration is so important, and especially with this particular item that we have related to computer science. In state statute, the Department of Education is required to submit a strategic plan for our computer science education program. What are we planning to do? What you have before you, and you received in your mail out, is our recommendation for a 10-year plan. I do want you to know, while it's 10 years, we know there's a lot that can happen in 10 years, especially in the area of computer science. It's evolving so quickly. So with that, this plan will be very nimble. It's a fluid plan. I want you to think of it that way as you hear our presentation today. This plan that you have supports the goal. I'm looking for our slides. Yep. Supports the board's vision, of course, but it also really hones in the 6 goals: Goal 1, Goal 2, Goal 6, and Goal 4. It touches all of those. So with that, I'll pass the presentation to Ms. Clemens to tell us about our 10-year strategic plan for computer science education.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what the Mississippi Computer Science and Cyber Education Equality Act was passed by the state legislature during the 2021 legislative session, and it had certain mandates that we, as the Department of Education, will help schools implement over the next 3 years. The first one is that all middle schools will offer a course in computer science, and 50% of the elementary schools will offer a minimum of 1 hour of instruction weekly to their students beginning in the 22-23 school year. So that's next school year. So we're working toward, again, all middle schools offering computer science courses and 50% of elementary schools offering that 1 hour minimum instruction per week. Beginning in the 23-24 school year, the expectation is that all elementary schools will offer 1 hour of computer science instruction per week, and 50% of all high schools will offer a course in computer science. And then it all culminates in 2024-2025 school year, when the expectation is that all local school districts shall provide that all schools in school districts offer instruction in computer science. So that means that all of our students in our school systems will be receiving some form of computer science. And so our challenge over the next few years is assisting districts in making sure that they can meet the challenge of this legislation. In addition, as Dr. Benton mentioned, we have a report that we have to submit to the legislature as well as the governor, and that is what you see provided to you, is just a report that we've worked on that outlines our plan for the next 10 years, as well as a landscape survey that we did. So in beginning to implement the legislation, the first thing that we did was convene a task force of constituents from around the state who had interest in computer science. And one of the first things they did was develop and disseminate a landscape survey so that we could get a feel for what computer science looks like in our state and where we were headed with computer science over the next 10 years. This is just a sampling of some of the survey summary reports that we got back. The whole landscape study is actually a part of the strategic plan, so you can see that. But of particular note, we found that most of our districts were offering some form of computer science education in their district, particularly in the middle school level. We only found a handful of districts that weren't offering middle school computer science education, so we feel like we're in a really good place for that target for 22-23, making sure that all middle schools are offering a course in computer science. Of note, on the adverse side, we have trained a lot of elementary teachers on computer science instruction, and less than 50% of them reported back to us that they were actually going back into their classrooms and implementing these strategies and instruction. So we know that we've got to do some work on our end to really help teachers, elementary school teachers, integrate computer science in their daily lessons and it not be one more thing that they have to do. It becomes a part of their math instruction. It becomes a part of their science, their ELA, and their social studies instruction. So wait, I went too far. So we developed a vision for the 10-year strategic plan that is constant with that of the State Board Education strategic plan. And the vision is to provide our students with engaging and equitable computer science experiences to prepare them for a data-driven future in our global society. And again, that mirrors a great deal of what the vision that you guys have established for us in our state as far as education is concerned. And we plan to achieve that vision in 5 ways. The first thing we've got to do is we've got to equip our teachers with the knowledge and skills they need to offer high-quality computer science instruction. And that includes pre-service teachers as well as in-service teachers. The next thing we have to do is we need to make sure that we always have relevant standards. Dr. Benton mentioned the ever-changing world of technology. We need to make sure that our standards are always relevant so that what we're teaching is relevant to the needs of industry. We want to develop, like I said, engaging and equitable curricula that can be used in the classroom. We also want to garner industry partners. We want to make sure that we're partnering with industry so that we not only can collaborate with them, but we make sure that we're meeting the needs of their demands. And then finally, stay abreast of technology and making sure that we're always at the forefront of that. So the strategic plan is made up of 10 strategic goals. These are the first 3 goals of the strategic plan, and they are centered around training both in-service and pre-service teachers, again, to ensure that our state is receiving high-quality computer science instruction. We have several plans for this, but one of the big plans is in June of 2022, we're going to host 4 two-day workshops held regionally within the state, training over about 900 teachers. And again, our goal is to train as many teachers as we can, and then also try to use a training of trainer models so that we're training teachers that can go back in and help their fellow teachers as well. The next 4 and 5 strategic plan goals is the financial needs of the initiative as well as the acquisition and maintenance of industry partners. We hope to explore different financial means in supporting this initiative, everything from writing grants to rating federal funds to support the efforts. We want to keep the legislature abreast of what we're doing in the computer science initiative and request funding from them. And then also through our industry partners, we've seen that industry partners do in fact give funds to help with these initiatives, and we'll continue to look for those opportunities. So goals 6, 7, and 8, they pertain to underrepresented groups in the state with computer science education, ensuring that standards remain up to date, I mentioned that earlier, and ensuring that elementary teachers have the resources needed to integrate computer science into their daily lessons. So again, we want to look at these underrepresented groups and find ways to get them in the field of computer science. And one idea that we've come up with is helping train counselors so they understand what the computer science field is and how they can get students that have the aptitude and the interest in computer science into that field. Just like you, Micah. The next one is keeping our standards relevant. I mentioned that. One of the things we propose to do with this initiative is look at our standards every 3 years. A lot of times we only look at our standards every 5, maybe 6 years, but we will look at them as needed to make sure that we're updating them and keeping them relevant. And then the last one here is really important. And Mr. East mentioned it in his report, really supporting our elementary school teachers. One of the things that we've done is developed a task force of elementary teachers from around the state, and they are building what we're calling an integration guide, and that guide will provide lesson plans to teachers in elementary school that shows them how to teach computer science in their math lessons, in their science lessons, et cetera. And some of you may say, well, Wendy, what does computer science look like at the elementary level? Well, typing, keyboarding is the initial, digital citizenship, coding, robotics. And those are the things that we will be teaching elementary school students to do while they're doing their math lessons and integrated in there. And I think that our elementary school teachers will appreciate that. And I will say that we have a really strong group of teachers that are putting together this integration guide, so we're very proud of them. All right, so strategic goals 9 and 10 speaks to raising the visibility of computer science opportunities to all of our constituents throughout the state, not just educators, but our parents and our community members, as well as providing access to computer science education through online platforms. One of the things the Center for Cyber Education, Shelley's here with us, will work with them to establish an online computer science institute by school year 23-24, and it will allow existing qualified Mississippi computer science teachers to stream middle and high school level courses. And what that allows us to do is that allows us to take our talent that may be pooled in one area of the state and use it to help areas that don't have those resources through an online platform. And so that's something that we're planning on doing and hopefully have ready for the 23-24 school year. So in summation, what the plan is going to do is, first of all, it's going to help us meet the legislative requirements. We obviously want to do that, and then we want to increase enrollment in computer science courses. It also helps us develop strategies for integrating and tracking computer science at the elementary school. It increases professional development opportunities for our teachers, which we know is pivotal for quality computer science education. Establish online opportunities for students to acquire computer science education. And then the last one is to build and teacher preparation programs so that we sustain computer science education efforts in our state. We want to make sure that we maintain that pipeline of teachers so that we always have qualified teachers to teach computer science. And at that's the end of the presentation. And at this time, Dr. Benton and I will entertain any questions that you have.
Any questions or comments? I was thinking while you were doing your presentation, when I went to graduation at the Math and Science School, I was sitting next to the speaker, who was a very successful businessman out of California. But as each student came across, they would announce what they were going to major in, what their goals were, where they were going to college. Well, this young man came across, and his degree, where he was going to pursue a degree in computer games development, computer game development. And the speaker sitting next to me said, there goes one of your most successful class members. He said, if he can break into that,
Right.
the sky is just, there's no limit.
Yeah.
And so I just had never thought about that, just to go out there and develop Minecraft or something, and you just be great.
That's right.
So,
And you know,
anyway.
that was in the opening
Right.
of the document, it talked about the number of jobs that were open in our state and the average entry salary for a computer science major being 70 plus.
Right.
That's a great salary. Isn't it, Mike? Look at Mike. She was excited. And I did want to, Ms. Clemens mentioned several times just the diversity in stakeholders involved, and you'll find that list on page 3 and 4. And I also want to issue an invitation to you if the board members, student representatives are interested in joining this work and being part of those conversations, we would be happy to include you in that.
Well, it's a wide open field.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
so there's a lot of promise there. So any other question, Dr. McGee?
Randy, on number 5 there for your certification for your teachers, is that going to be an add-on certificate?
We're talking about that, particularly in our pre-service world, to see if we might want to have some sort of endorsement that they can acquire that would help them be better prepared to teach that in their we have it. Oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Debbie, you want to stand up?
Several of our EPPs, our educator preparation providers, those are our universities who prepare our teachers and our leaders, already have endorsements in computer science, and they've been most recent. So, yeah, we're ready.
let me dig a little deeper. What about an existing in-service teacher who wants that certification? Can we get an add-on instead of going back?
We do have endorsements, yes, sir.
Okay, any other?
Oh.
Go.
Individual courses, so teachers don't have to, like, just for ECS.
Mr. Jacobs?
Is there funding in place to implement this, or is that coming?
Well, this past year, for the first time, we were given $1 million from the legislature. So I think this is something we're going to continue to ask for because we've been working at this prior to the legislation without any funding. So now that we've got a little bit of money, this is going to be a big help to us. So we'll continue to ask for that money across the street.
One of the goals, I don't remember which one, was educating the public and everything. I think
Right.
Goal number 9. Absolutely. That, you're exactly correct. So communications is going to be really critical so that the public actually does know what is happening.
ask and it'll be paid for.
That's right.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, under the Office of Chief Academic Officer, do we have a motion to approve item 2, the 10-year strategic plan for?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay, Mr. East, is there a second?
Second.
Miller, okay. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Item 3 is an update from the Office of Teaching and Leading. Dr. Vanderford? Mr. Murphy?
Good morning. Dr. Elam gave us a great introduction to our information item that we have today, and I'm going to turn the presentation over to Dr. Murphy, who leads the work in the Office of Teaching and Leading, and allow Dr. Bursons and Dr. Van Cleef to join Dr. Murphy at the table because they are the ones that are in the day-to-day weeds of this work. And to Dr. Elam's point, there are a number of projects that are going on within the 3 divisions within OTL, and Dr. Murphy will highlight that work. You do have a copy of the presentation at your table. I think it has the little black clip on the top of that, so that's available. So at this time, I'll excuse myself from the table to allow room for Dr. Bursons and Van Cleef.
All right, good morning, and we appreciate the opportunity to share with you today. I am Corey Murphy, and I serve to provide oversight for the Office of Teaching and Leading. Namely, the divisions that make up the Office of Teaching and Leading are the Division of Educator Talent Acquisition and Effectiveness, the Division of Educator Preparation, and the Division of Educator Licensure. Again, we'll reiterate, while we have lots of exciting work underway in and across each of the 3 divisions that will directly address the needs of our education stakeholders in the state, today, the update that will be provided to you will only focus on recent critical shortage survey results gathered by our Division of Educator Talent Acquisition and Effectiveness team. We will provide you with updates about the other work that we have at future meetings as that unfolds. However, in addition to sharing our critical shortage survey results, we want to make you aware of and provide you with a brief high-level overview of the key recommendations made by the Mississippi Governor's Education Human Capital Task Force. These presentations were scheduled to take place at separate times this year, but had to be moved to a later meeting. Dr. Van Cleef will share information related to the critical shortage survey results, and Dr. Burson will close us out by providing us with information related to the Governor's Task Force recommendations. Dr. Van Cleef.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy, and good morning, everybody. Good morning. So I'll go ahead, as Dr. Murphy has indicated, and move us forward into some of the results that we're seeing from our educator shortage survey.
Can you move the mic a little bit closer to you, because that's going to be almost right in front of
We're
your.
good?
Yep.
There we go.
There you go.
Thank you, guys. So again, as with all things in the Office of Teaching and Leading, we ground within our vision and mission with a particular focus on Goal 4. Every school has effective teachers and leaders, even as we believe that Goal 4 lays the foundation for many of our student outcomes, such as those listed in Goals 1, 2, and 3. So as Dr. Murphy has provided much of the context for the Office of Teaching and Leading through his leadership and Dr. Vanderford's leadership as well, we've really been striving to move from what we've often thought of as a leaky pipeline, where we're losing a number of aspiring and current educators due to barriers within the workforce, to a more nimble approach that offers multiple on and off ramps into the profession, while recognizing the need for comprehensive and aligned supports that truly support educators from recruitment to retirement. So you can see here that is indeed outlined in our structure within Office of Teaching and Leading, with the divisions of educator talent acquisition, preparation, licensure, and effectiveness all working together in concert to ensure that educators have the supports they need at every moment throughout their educational journey. So within that effort, we hold ourselves responsible to a number of key strategies, only a couple of which that I'll give an overview of today, given that they have some relevance for the items before you. One of which is that we continually work with our local school districts to make sure that they have both the depth and the breadth of a talent pool necessary to ensure that every child has access to effective teachers. And so within that, we'll give an overview of some of our innovative pathways that are indeed striving to meet that. They then have the space to do so because we are always exploring multiple pathways to licensure in collaboration with our educator stakeholders. Anytime that we're looking to strengthen our guidelines, we do so in concert with our principals, our teachers, and our communities and our students to make sure that they are indeed both relevant and necessary for ensuring safe and effective practice here in Mississippi. So within that, we acknowledge that those are really aspirational aims, even as we recognize the need to be really clear-eyed about some of the challenges that we currently face with our educator workforce. One of those is indeed the educator shortage. So I will go through and move us at a high level of some of our educator shortage survey results. We launched the Educator Shortage Survey on August 31st of 2021. It closed on October 11th of 2021. Through the dedicated efforts of our team and many individuals within the agency, we were able to ensure that 100% of Mississippi's traditional public school districts completed the survey. So this is perhaps one of the most comprehensive pictures that we have ever had of teacher shortages, and not only teacher shortages, but also we collected information on administrator shortages and school support staff vacancies as well. So school support staff, including individuals like our bus drivers, our nurses, our school custodians. And the main thing that we also wanted to understand was district-generated strategies, understanding that our districts are closest to the challenges facing our educator shortages, that they also create some of the most innovative solutions for moving us forward. So with that, according to district leaders across the state of Mississippi, they are currently anticipating 3,036 certified teacher vacancies for the 2021-2022 school year. When we look more broadly and we include certified teachers and administrative staff and school support staff, that number increases to 5,503 educator workforce vacancies that are anticipated for the 2021-2022 school year. And looking at many of your faces, I'll acknowledge that this number can feel daunting. It can even feel disheartening. And yet we're really encouraged. We're encouraged within the Office of Teaching and Leading that a number of the strategies that we have in place are indeed targeting some of the highest areas of need statewide. We're also encouraged long-term by some of the broader collective efforts that are happening, because it really is going to take all of us, our universities, our districts, any education stakeholder here in Mississippi, to ensure that every child has access to an effective teacher every minute of every single day. So within that, those are, again, large numbers. As we break down some of the classifications that we've been using here, with teacher vacancies, again, 3,036 anticipated for this school year. The highest overall number there is 958 for elementary, followed by high school at 881.5. Then we move into K-12 teachers, such as your music, your art, your special education teachers at 653.5, followed then by middle schools at 543. When we look at K-12 licensed educators, such as our librarians, counselors, speech-language pathologists, that is sitting at about 232. Moving forward, we found that there are a number of K-12 support staff vacancies, that there's a significant amount at 2,118. The highest overall numbers therein are including our teacher assistants, bus drivers, and food service staff. So we have a smaller vacancy number within administrators at 117. That being said, it is something that we certainly want to keep an eye on long-term as well. So with that, we also wanted to understand sort of even regionally what were our vacancies looking like. This is only for teacher vacancies, not administrators and support staff. But what we found when we looked across congressional districts, our highest overall average anticipated vacancies was 1,274 in Congressional District 3, followed then by Congressional District 2 at 776.5, followed then by District 4 at 709.5, and then with the smallest overall number of anticipated vacancies being Congressional District 1 at 276. So again, they're large numbers, and we're certainly continuing to keep a pulse on the shortages statewide, even as we remain encouraged by a number of the educator workforce strategies that we have in place right here, right now. A number of these different items that are indeed in front of you today. So I'll just go through a couple of those items that have relevance for some of our items for today. One of the challenges that we heard loud and clear from districts was the extent of elementary and special education shortages in Mississippi. And so a strategy that we have in place is to offer strong alternate route Master of Arts in teaching pathways in elementary K-6 and special education K-12, both of those being items for today. Another challenge that we heard from districts is just that sometimes workforce barriers are very local in nature. What is needed on the coast is not always what is needed in the Delta or in Eastern Mississippi or here, even here in Jackson proper. So we're continuing to target local workforce barriers through innovations such as the Mississippi Teacher Residency, of which Mr. East District is one of our partners. And so one of those items that we're looking for today is actually an expansion of that program to address some of these shortages right here, right now. In addition, moving forward, we look to offer more unique congressional district supports through our educator workforce specialists who are also housed within the Office of Teaching and Leading. So again, to that promise of what is it that we're doing right here, right now, we actually have two innovative pathways that are currently running within the Office of Teaching and Leading. One is indeed the Mississippi Teacher Residency. That particular pathway is an effort to increase the amount of high-quality clinical practice under the supervision of an effective mentor teacher in preparing our educators. And we remove a lot of the financial barriers within this pathway by offering full tuition, all books, all testing fees, all-inclusive, mentor stipends included as well on that pathway. The other pathway that we have is the performance-based licensure pathway. This is a nationally unprecedented effort to explore performance-based alternatives to some of our current licensure testing criteria, such as the praxis, because we continue to hear from districts that I have phenomenal educators serving as long-term substitutes, special non-renewable licensed teachers, they're advancing student outcomes, and they face a lot of challenges with passing the praxis. So we are indeed exploring that pathway through the performance-based licensure pilot. We're 3 years into both programs. They were funded through the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. And we have then 3 years worth of data as both programs were intended to increase educator diversity and effectiveness statewide. In terms of recruitment, we have a lot to be encouraged by about the potential for these programs in increasing educator diversity, as 70% of the Mississippi Teacher Residency currently identify as a person of color. And meanwhile, within the performance-based licensure pilot, 99% of our candidates identify as a person of color, which moving from recruitment into preparation, One of the findings that we're seeing from the Mississippi Teacher Residency is they are indeed more than doubling the number of clinical hours. So what we frequently think of is like student teaching hours. So they're more than doubling the number of clinical practice hours, and that's in comparison to our minimum traditional student teaching baseline that sits at 420. So then, as we think about, then there's a question of effectiveness. So as we look at the performance-based licensure pilot, we wanted to get a gauge on teacher effectiveness using the professional growth system, which is what administrators use to observe teachers here in the state of Mississippi. We have PBL comparison teachers who have indeed passed all required licensure testing exams, and we found that when we pulled those summative scores, 3.09 was the average score for our PBL comparison teacher who had passed licensure exams, whereas with our PBL candidates, they were averaging at about a 3.14, keeping in mind that the state's definition of teacher effectiveness, according to the PGS, is a level 3 in practice. In terms of effectiveness on the Mississippi Teacher Residency side, we were really encouraged by our mentor teacher surveys, those individuals who are working most closely with our residents, 87% of whom indicated that their residents were either very well prepared or prepared to serve as the teacher of record upon graduation. And we also found a number of exciting trends across the different instructional domains needed to serve as teacher of record. So then there's a question, we move from retention and effectiveness into this question of, are our candidates staying long-term? And so 3 years into both programs, we're averaging retention of 91% in the Mississippi Teacher Residency and 92% within the performance-based licensure pilot. Our PBL candidates also average 13 years of experience, either as a special non-renewable candidate, a teacher assistant, or an emergency certified teacher. So there is reason to indicate that these are individuals who are committed to the classroom long term. And as always has been mentioned earlier, we always like to be good financial stewards of the resources that we have been granted from the Kellogg Foundation, and so we keep track of the average cost per candidate. Currently, with staffing support from the MDE, the PBL pilot is averaging about a $500 per year cost per candidate. Meanwhile, the Mississippi Teacher Residency is slightly higher at $21,700, but when you consider tuition, mentor stipends, books, and fees, that's still significantly less than national averages as projected by the National Center for Teacher Residencies. So again, these are just, as Dr. Elam shared, these are just two of the pathways and programs that we have going on within the Office of Teaching and Leading that are immediate efforts to address educator shortages. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Deborah Burson, who will describe some of our longer term efforts as well. Yeah, we can.
I saw some heads nodding. Did anybody have questions or anything?
I think we're going to wait to take the questions
to
till
the
the
end?
presentations
All right,
are-
great. Well, then I'll move forward. Good morning, Madam Chair, Dr. Wright, members of the board. I'm Debbie Burson, the Bureau Director for Ed Prep here at the agency, and it's my great pleasure to come before you today to share some information with you regarding some of our most recent work with the Southern Regional Education Board on our Governor's Education Human Capital Task Force. So this morning I'm going to provide you with information on SREB's report addressing Mississippi Teacher Shortage, a collaborative action plan. So if you'll go to the next. The Mississippi Governor's Education Human Capital Task Force, that we'll refer to as the task force, was convened by Governor Tate Reeves at the request of SREB in early 2020, pre-pandemic, to address areas of needs as related to Mississippi's educator pipeline and to explore innovative solutions to strengthen the teacher workforce across the state. This task force included members, teachers, administrators, deans, presidents of universities, other state agencies like workforce development, community college representatives, MDE staff, IHL staff, nonprofit organizations, And we also had 2 members of the state board that served on this task force, Dr. Elam and Mr. Glenn East. So we were very thankful for their support with this work. So over a period of 18 months, as I said, beginning pre-pandemic through August of 2021, the task force collaborated in the development of recommendations related to the teaching workforce in Mississippi, while also paying careful attention to issues of equity and diversity and positive student outcomes. At the center of the task force mission was one goal. This is your state board goal 4, providing every Mississippi child with an effective teacher, while focusing on 4 primary pillars to rebuild the pipeline: expand pathways into teaching, redesign teacher licensure, improve teacher supports, and revise teacher compensation and salary schedules. First, we need to enhance and broaden preparation pathways, creating more opportunity and access to diversify the teaching profession in Mississippi by unpacking how individuals actually enter the profession from various backgrounds. The goal is to attract potential teachers from multiple walks of life and to provide meaningful, real-world experiences for resident teachers before they move into beginning teacher roles as teacher of record. Mississippi also needs to redesign the existing licensure structure to better support professional advancement of teachers using induction pathways to scaffold skill development and provide support that can attract and retain more teachers. The process should allow for resident teachers to progress through the licensure structure based on content and pedagogical skills. As teachers move from a beginning teacher license to an advanced licensure based on demonstrated competencies and positive student outcomes, Mississippi should consider how to reward teachers' efficacy with career advancement, with designations such as professional teacher, master teacher, or lead mentor teacher. Again, this design is intended to give teachers an opportunity to advance and grow, becoming more autonomous without having to leave the classroom. In addition to redesigning licensure structures, Mississippi needs to offer integrated teacher supports like mentorship and funded professional learning. Supports such as these have the potential to change the culture of teaching in Mississippi. We have seen the benefits of such support for professional learning directly over the past 8 years as Mississippi has invested significantly in professional development related to the science of reading, as well as coaching supports for our K-3 teachers. The task force recommends that Mississippi address teacher salaries, providing fair compensation that mirrors neighboring states with opportunities for salary increases as teachers hone pedagogical skills and increase student growth. While largely political, the element of pay is key to keeping teachers in the classroom. As many teachers see, the only current pathway to increased compensation often requires them to leave the classroom for a different role in education or to, unfortunately, leave the field completely. The report outlines several action steps needed to see these recommendations come to fruition. The first, as mentioned by Dr. Wright in her opening remarks, addresses the SLDS, or the State Longitudinal Data System. The state needs to ensure data are accessible to inform decisions being made by individuals throughout the education sector in Mississippi. Further, data need to be more efficiently integrated and reported to demonstrate teacher impact on student outcomes. The task force recommends use of funds to improve functionality, usefulness, and accessibility of the SLDS. To improve access to teacher preparation, the state should expand existing 2+2 programs. The task force recommends that students in 2-year community colleges interested in pursuing teaching should be allowed to experience additional teacher preparation courses prior to transfer. The task force urges the Education Achievement Council to convene all 2-year and 4-year colleges to negotiate and to modify select education preparation courses to increase the number offered at the community college level. To accomplish this, a coalition between Mississippi Community College Board, Mississippi's Institutions of Higher Learning, and Mississippi Association of Independent Colleges and Universities should be developed. with the goal of creating one or more statewide teaching associate's degrees that transfer to four-year institutions, leading to degree attainment. As we consider EdPrep curricula, the task force urges state agencies to consider creating an educator preparation program accountability system to guarantee the quality, content, and rigor of preparation programs to ensure greater consistency among all EPPs and programs leading to licensure. The task force also recommends creating a new introductory education course that would be taught, accepted, and universally transferable from any two-year institution in Mississippi, including dual enrollment high school students. Finally, the task force recommends that MDE leadership fully utilize the Talent Acquisition Group in partnership with the Department of Employment Security and the State Workforce Investment Board to expand statewide workforce development priorities to teaching and leading within the education system. The task force recommends exploring financial incentives at the state and district level, as also differentiated tuition for education degree programs and loan forgiveness programs at the state level as incentives to enter teaching careers. The task force recommends that the MDE explore hiring an outside consulting group using state university experts to assess marketing needs and provide supports. Again, this is just a high-level overview of the work that was conducted by the task force. As we move forward, I've been designated as the MDE co-lead in working in conjunction with Dr. Terry J. Rowe, Dean at Mississippi State, Ms. Heather Morrison, our State Director for P20, to move these initiatives forward. Additionally, all of our task force members have agreed to continue in this work, which I feel is very positive. And the Office of Teaching and Leading is very excited about the potential these recommendations have for transforming how we prepare, support, and retain the best and brightest teachers for Mississippi. I thank you for this opportunity to share, and I look forward to coming before you in the future to tell you how we've made these recommendations come alive in our state.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board about this? I think one thing that came to mind, and we've had this discussion ever since I've been on this board, is the fact that we need IHL, we need deans, we need community college people, we need MDE people, and local practitioners around the table to discuss the issue that we have, and this is a good opportunity to do that.
And as this report said, it's a collaborative effort,
Right.
and the task force did represent multiple shareholders from across the state. And we have many as we said, we have many initiatives in the Office of Teaching and Leading that this work directly fits within the scope of the work that we are currently involved in. And so we see most of these recommendations very doable.
And just to a comment about the teacher pay, although we don't control that, the Senate Ed Chair held a teacher compensation hearing, and SREB was asked to come and testify because they've done a lot of work. SREB's, that's the Southern Regional Education Board, and that's 16 states. So if you start at Maryland and swipe all the way through the South, that's all the states that belong to that. And so they've been working with all of the states in SREB around this very issue around teacher compensation. So it was good to have them at the table to present the information so that they know what's happening, at least in the southern area of the country.
I'd just like to highlight, having served on the committee, the importance of the first comments you made of how to compensate teachers, but not have them feel they have to go into administration to make a living. And I think that's one of the key components that came out of this, is the way to reward teachers for working with other teachers, mentoring other teachers, for adding on certifications going forward so they don't have to move into an assistant principalship or something like that.
That's exactly right.
A lot of work went into this over COVID, and a lot of time and energy. Had a great leader, so I enjoyed that.
You don't need to lose those really good teachers out of the classroom.
Exactly right.
Because they want to move up in compensation.
That's right.
Into someplace they may not really want to be. They like being in the classroom, so.
There are some days I wish I was still teaching.
Amen.
And I just have a
quick comment and a question that maybe y'all can speak to. But like one quick question was, I get the feeling that the teacher shortage it's like more pronounced than it normally is. Can you speak to that? Like how does this teacher shortage compare to other teacher shortages that we've seen? I have another question.
Sure. Well, so the tricky thing there is this is really the first time that we've had this degree of data. One thing that we did that was new this year at Technical Fix on is we assigned every district their own username and password. So what we didn't have was what we had previously was like even multiple entries from the same district. We wanted to make sure that our data was really clean, and that also allowed us to track district completion. So the tough thing is this year at least we don't have a measure to compare to, but we are certainly hopeful and will strive to have the same sort of measure in effect next year so that we can actually show where there were increases, where there were decreases within the shortages.
Dr. Bass, one thing I'll add to that is that we know that teacher shortage is not a Mississippi-specific issue.
Right.
This is a
Absolutely.
national crisis,
Right.
and you can hear this across the country. I will say that the bold steps that this board took to waive licensure tests did yield a high number of admitted candidates into our programs. So at this point, we did admit a great number of candidates, and our largest group were our diverse candidates. So that's good. So moving forward with these recommendations and how we strengthen our licensure structure to implement induction and mentoring, and we give these teachers support. Mr. East, these teachers need support, right? That's what we hear it repeatedly. We've had these conversations since 2014 with you. So how do we at the state level put in these supports and have this structure so that these teachers stay with us?
Yeah, and definitely a big kudos to getting that level of data and the clean data that we need. I look forward to monitoring it.
Yeah, it was certainly a team effort. Absolutely, there were a lot of phone calls, reminder emails. We may have hassled a superintendent or two, but we really do. We're going to use it. I mean, that's the thing. It's a comprehensive picture of where we are right now. We're going to continue to find the data moving forward, and we're going to use it to inform our strategies.
Yeah, the other comment I had was around the performance-based licensing,
Yeah.
and I just think that is amazing. Having worked in schools alongside folks who were trying to study to pass praxis, and I took a lot of their methods and strategies from them, and really couldn't understand the barriers to passing praxis. At that time, I think that is a very bold step, and I'm happy to see the data that shows that it can be effective.
Absolutely.
Just a quick question. I don't know if you can speak to when the pilot ends and when you might seek for like an expansion.
Yes, absolutely. So the pilot it's tied to our Kellogg grant funding, and so that round of funding is slated to end October 31st of next year is the initial terms of that grant. But what is really exciting is we've also entered into a data sharing agreement with Harvard University, so that they are actually looking at some of the different indicators within the pilot study, and we hope to, provided all things go well and there are no more unprecedented disruptions in our education system, we're hoping to have initial findings from them this spring. So that's the hope. And I'll echo what you said, Dr. Bass, as well. I mean, this is personally important work for me too, just knowing that as a principal, I had teachers who were moving our entire school who faced challenges in passing the praxis. Growth scores off the charts, move children towards proficiency every single day, and yet face challenges with assessments like the praxis. So it's personally meaningful work, and we're definitely dedicated to continuing to study it.
And the results from this pilot and a recommendation that's made in the report where we are strengthening that licensure structure at the early stages so that we can bring these teachers in an induction period without full licensure requirements met and offer some options. These are zero cost to the state, but will yield more teachers in our pipeline. So this is, we really do have a method to our madness.
Well, I think,
Thank you.
I think another factor is, once you get them in the school district, salaries or pay are not the only issue. That's a big issue. But we hear administrative support, which there's going to have to be a lot of education with that, and parental support and involvement is another big issue in retaining teachers and keeping them there. So that's another factor that sometimes we don't hear as much about. We just think it's all about teacher pay. So a lot of work to be done, but this is a great start and good information, and thank you for your work, and we'll press on. Any other questions?
I would like to address Dr. Bass's question about current shortage. And Dr. McGee, he probably has a larger group that he works in. That if I'm incorrect in my assessment, please correct me. But the peers that I work for, Dr. Bass, we've always struggled with math teachers and science teachers and special ed teachers. But I think across our state, for the first time, we're struggling just to find good elementary teachers. And I think the numbers may be whatever, but it is broadening the range of what we're really looking for. There were days where there were some schools struggling for elementary, but the most were not. Now I think a large number are struggling for just good, strong elementary school teachers.
And Mr. East, I will say that we're already addressing that, in that the board has already approved a supplemental endorsement for K-6 licensure. That didn't exist before, so if you are a practicing educator, you can add that supplemental endorsement to elementary. Prior to this, you had to complete a degree. And so we are moving in the Masters of Arts in elementary. We're expanding the 4-6, it's an item you'll see, 4-6 to K-6. So we have heard the cry from the districts, and we are answering the cry.
And this report answers a lot of that as well.
Thank you
It's
for
different
that.
than it was 5 years ago. It really is.
Okay, thank you very much. We will move to item 4. This is a number of contracts we need to approve. Good morning, Dr. Gavin.
Good morning, Mrs. Altman and board members. As you remember back a couple of months ago, the board gave us the authority to go forth and execute several contracts as it relates to our 9.5% set aside that we have in Esser funds. So we're bringing forth to you today several of those contracts and several grants that we're seeking approval on. The first item is a contract for Esser Technical Assistance for the Office of Federal Programs. We are seeking to bring forth 2 candidates to help us with that work in reviewing applications and all the work that goes along with the Esser plan.
Go ahead. I started to say, just move through them, yeah.
Okay. The second item is item 4B. It's a contract with temp staff, and this is in direct support with to help with some of the work that you just heard about. It's to approve a contract with a temporary staffing agency so that we can get our call center for the Educational Licensure Office up and running. I think this will help us bring forth probably about 18 temporary staff members to help us staff the call center to answer all those calls for all those licenses that we will be processing. Item 4C is a contract with the State Health Department. It's just an annual license that we have to get for them to approve all of our items that go over to the Health Department. Item 4D is a contract with Toshiba to supply all of our copiers for the agency here at Central Office, as well as Child Nutrition Office, and as well as the CTE warehouse. That is to a 4-year contract with Toshiba for all of our copying services. I believe item 4E was pulled. So item 4F, that is a big contract for us, and we're excited to bring that item forth. That is our MSIS 2.0 contract with Worldwide Technology. So that is using our Esser funds, and that is to start the work on the MSIS 2.0 upgrade. Item 4 is a modification to an existing contract. It is with or for our Oracle license support. And item 4H is also a modification for the National Student Clearinghouse. Items 4I and, let's see, 4I, 4J, and I believe item 4K. These are all contracts for supplemental digital content that we're getting for, I believe, item 4I is for English learners for grades K-12 and grades K through 2 and grades 3 through 12, and this for digital supplemental content for the ELA content. And item J is a contract with a vendor for supplemental mathematic digital support for grades K-8. And 4K is the supplemental digital content for social studies and for science. I believe those are all the contracts. And as we stated when we brought this forth a couple of months ago, most of these contracts were done through a competitive process. We utilized the emergency process, but they were all competitively bid. And we went through that process, but it was just a shortened process. But we did competitively go out for quotes or either through an RFP for these contracts.
Any questions on these, Mr. Jacobs?
One on Worldwide Technology, the 10.8 million on that. In November, we passed something for hiring the technology. Is this a duplicate of that or in addition to it?
This is in addition to that. I think you're talking about some of the staffing, some of the contract workers that we hired. That is in addition to this. Some of those workers will actually be working on this project. This is the vendor that will actually build out the platform for MSIS, and that contract was with, I think it was an OG staff contract where we're going out hiring contract workers to support this work for MSIS 2.0.
So we spent that money and we're spending this money, it's all in the same.
It is, and it's all our Esser funds, but like, again, that's for the personnel side of it that would actually help build out this work, and this is the vendor that will be working with our internal staff as well as those contract workers to build out this system over the next 3 years, and it is a 3-year contract.
Okay.
Ms. Werner?
I've been approached, and as you all know, that I'm new on the board, so I'll give you my best understanding of what people have said to me. They seem to be upset with the fact that right now they actually have programs that are supplemental programs that they're using, and that none of them were asked about what you're proposing. And the thing,
pardon me, which item are you referring? Is it
well,
this?
they were talking about like all of the supplemental digital programs.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
J and K.
Yeah.
Okay. And yes, IJ and K.
J and K, yeah.
And one of the things that somebody brought up to me that they were very concerned about was the fact that, let's say they opt into this program, okay, and then they realize that that's not exactly what they want. They still have to pay for it, even after they've opted into it. And they can't opt out without having to pay.
So the services that we're procuring here, the agency is paying for this through our Esser funds. We sent out a survey, I believe, and I'll let Dr. Smith speak more to this. But we sent out a survey to the districts, and this is a free service to the districts. The agency is using part of its 9.5% set aside to support this work. So the districts will be able to opt in or to opt out of the service.
But if they opt in,
It's free.
oh, that's not what I understood.
No, that's what Dr. Gavin's saying. This is a free service to all districts. So they can
And do
either.
they have a say as to the company and the programs that?
No, that's on our end. So we did the vetting, and then the RFP went out, And then when all that comes back in, it's our regular procurement process. But there's no cost to the districts whatsoever. So they can either opt in for the free service or opt out. They don't have to participate. So this we did because remember last year, we went through that whole process with Mississippi Connects of making sure, okay, maybe you weren't here, Mary.
I joined
Okay,
in July.
so last year, we had a huge initiative, thanks to the legislature, that gave us $200 million. We bought every teacher and every student a brand-new laptop computer device. We expanded learning management systems, so now every district has a learning management system. We expanded connectivity, but getting the device was part one, if you will. So then the part 2 and 3, I'll expand on that in just a second, but the part 2 for us was hiring the digital learning coaches that are now out working with teachers. That's on us. We're providing that service like we do with all coaches. But then the part 3 was they needed other kinds of content to load onto these devices so that teachers could use them in the classroom or children could use them at home and have the content available. Or, as Mr. East said earlier, parents have access to this. So that was on us to say, okay, what else can we give the districts that might be of service to them, to their children, to their teachers, to their families? And so we went through the vetting process, did the RFP, these came back, and this isn't costing the districts a dime. So and that's when we sent out the survey, which they were talking to you about. We surveyed them, and we said, do you want to, well, maybe you can talk about the specific questions. Dr. Smith sent the survey out. I've read the survey, but you talked to the survey.
So we surveyed the districts, and we asked them, are you interested in participating with, in this particular program, the Supplemental Digital Subscription Program? Would you like to participate for K2 ELA, 312 ELA? And we asked for each content area. We also asked, well, if you like to participate, you have between January and July. You can opt in for this, or you can opt in from July to December. So we gave them specific time periods. Now, if they opt in from in January, they'll get 3 years of subscription services. If they opt in July, they get that 18 months or whatever, 2.5 years. 2.5 years of subscription services.
Now, let me ask you, are they using any SDSs currently? Because I would assume that there's a lot of training going on in this.
There are a lot of digital subscriptions. However, the difference between this particular program is that we were seeking to provide, as identified in the Equity in Digital Learning Act survey that went out to teachers, they identified curriculum and supplemental material as one of the key areas that they needed support in. So this particular RFQ, request for quotes, was sent to supplemental digital subscriptions that supplemented the high-quality Tier 1 core instructional material that were already in place in schools. So many districts or many companies thought that they were looking at intervention programs. These are not intervention programs. These are supplemental programs that sort of fill in the holes with the high-quality instructional material that districts have already adopted.
If I may, this was the topic of conversation with our committee yesterday, Ms. Warner. That fear factor came out in our committee, so let's make sure we get straight to it. This is supplemental. The opt-in, opt-out is not about money. This is something the State Department is providing. They can opt in to it now, or they can opt into it later. It does not replace what school districts are allowed to do now.
Correct.
This is just another way to be able to use the equipment and supplies that we were able to provide through the state and this board a year ago. And I think there has been some fear. I know you've gotten some questions because I have too. But at the end of the day, this is a supplemental chance for them to add to their toolbox, if you will, that does not cost them anything, and they do not have to throw out anything they're doing now to be able to add this to their curriculum structure. So,
Okay, I guess what and I am confused.
That's okay. Ask your questions.
No, the people who have spoken to me about this are really concerned. And I guess that's what I'm trying to convey is I'm not sure I understand why they are that concerned, because you sound so logical, rational, and I mean, I buy it.
Do you think they feel like they're required to use it, or it's replacing something
I
that?
think there's a lot of that. There's a lot of, perhaps just a fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's.
So behind that, Mary, just so you know, there's also going to be a lot of professional development. So the companies that are going to be providing these digital services are also going to be providing professional development for teachers, so that and our digital learning coaches will be out there, our literacy coaches are out there, our school improvement coaches are out there. As of February, our math coaches are going to be out there. So there's going to be a lot of people across the state to help teachers implement this. And I'm glad you mentioned I'm not the procurement person, Dr. Gavin will tell you. I always use RFP for everything, and it was not an RFP, as my chief of staff reminded me. It was an RFQ. So don't ask me. That's the person that needs to answer is Dr. Gavin. But we got RFPs, RFQs, and RFAs. So this was a Q.
In addition.
So now, Mary, if you think you're confused, I'm more than confused. So I don't even get into that. Yes.
In addition, I think it's important to note that we will have a question and answer webinar today at 3:30, because we do recognize that there are a lot of questions out there. And so in order to sort of alleviate some of the fear, we have developed a question and answer session that we will host at 3:30 for any districts who need some clarification or some answers to alleviate their fears and concerns. You're welcome.
Well, I think the best statement made is this is just another tool in the toolbox to help teachers. And if they choose to use it, great. If they don't, well, then, that's fine too.
Yes, ma'am.
But it's just another resource for them to use to fill in the gaps or
yes, ma'am.
add to or enhance or whatever word you want to use to make teaching and learning.
Yeah. Students and families.
Mm-hmm.
So most importantly, that family access is so important, because parents need the additional resources as well.
On that point about family access, is there going to be any type of dissemination to families to where it's my understanding that they'll have access to this at home? What is going to be done, if anything, to help educate the parents that this is available?
There was, in the RFQ, there was some language around providing supports for parents. So vendors will have to either develop a one-pager or some additional professional learning or little webinars for parents, so that they will understand how to access the material that's available. And of course, the MDE staff, along with our digital learning coaches, will be providing supports in addition.
So it's going to be on the vendor to come up with the materials?
Some of it will be vendor, some of it will be MDE. Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because, we're the ones driving this, and it's on us to make sure that we use all of our platforms and that the vendors follow through on what they've said they're going to provide as well. Because I think it's not going to do anybody any good if you don't have the right access to it. So,
or if they don't know about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Mr. Jacobs.
This better explains to me, because I had some same concerns, but the three programs are $31 million. And we're talking, not costing schools, but costing somebody. And through here is a renewal of a contract for years 2 and 3, contingent on successful completion. Who's checking that piece of it?
That's on us.
Yes.
Did you want to speak to that,
Yes.
Dr. Smith?
That is on the program office. We do have Elizabeth Simmons, who is of our instructional materials and library resources. She will pull down a report of usage, and we will be checking in with districts if they have issues or if the programming is not meeting the needs. So we do have a clause built in that will help us determine whether or not we will refund,
Since districts can opt in and out of it.
Correct.
Is there a level of enough opt-out that we won't spend this money the year 2?
That's what we're going to be looking at once we get the commitments from the districts, because what we'll do is whatever money is that's not expended on this will then go back into the overall funds that we may end up at the end with that we would redistribute.
Yeah, it will be, the contracts will be based on the number of students that the district said they want to opt in. So we will pay based on that information that we receive from the districts.
We have about 100,000 accounts for K-2, 350,000 accounts for 312 for ELA, 350,000 accounts for K-8 math, and 250,000 for K-6 science, and 200,000 for 712 science. And I'm most excited about that 712 science because it's interactive labs and interactive projects that the students can interact with via the computers. And for social studies, we have approximately 350,000 accounts available for districts and schools.
Now, when you say accounts available, these are people who've indicated they want to participate?
These are the accounts that we made
that they're
available,
open.
and then these are
Okay.
open, and then
Okay.
we will adjust the amount based on the
Total number.
Yeah, the opt-in.
Okay.
The number of opt-in.
At the 350, if it moves to 360, do you add 10,000 more accounts or what?
No, we're capped out there, so we don't anticipate. I mean, we estimated on the high side, so we don't anticipate that it will go over that number. No, we're committed to the numbers that we're presenting here today because we have to commit those funds by February, so there will be no opportunity to add funds to it.
That cover everybody in the whole state of Mississippi, or is there
It should,
a
and
number
pretty
that's-
much is what we've planned on covering pretty much everybody. And we also knew that some people weren't going to opt in. I mean,
Right.
it's kind of like right now, there was no way we could get people to commit before we, needed this money to be obligated. So I think we're in a good spot.
everybody commits, we got enough subscriptions?
Yes.
Dr. Elam?
Yes. After you collect who's opting in, and I guess you're not collecting who's opting out, they just don't opt in. But once you have that information, could you come back to the board and provide us, I don't want to know district by district, but an idea of high-performing schools, how much opted in, and low-performing schools? Because my concern is that the lower-performing schools, I'm not criticizing them, just may not be equipped to utilize what you're giving them.
We can certainly provide that. That's not a problem.
Yes, we can do that.
I would say maybe mid-spring, let's at least give it a couple of months to get everybody up and running. Because I think if you're making access available January, then maybe March-ish, we can come back with that. That'll at least give you 2 months worth of a look.
I just think we need to.
Sure, be happy to do that.
Definitely.
Dr. McGee?
Now, are you going to come back annually and report on the usage of this?
We
If
can.
that's the will of the board.
There you go.
Well, I too,
Right answer.
I too received a number of contacts from districts concerning this. They were excited at the beginning, okay, and then felt like some communications were dropped, all right, along this line. And then, of course, with the amount of money that we're talking about here, is this an annual revision or is this an ongoing with a 3-year situation?
Currently, Dr. Gavin?
It's a 3-year commitment. We're using some of our Esser 2 as well as our Esser 3 funds, so they will have access to the system through September of 2024.
So do we have a rubric that's going to be based upon the amount of usage and the amount that we move forward?
We pay for it by subscription. Each student, each person will have a log on.
So
Well, I guess my specific question is the amount of usage. How many of them are actually using it, and what's the benefit out of the program?
So
Yeah,
I
we'll be able
think
to-
to your point, we will be
Yeah.
able to provide annually, if that's the will of the board, to provide what the usage has been over the year, the course of the year, by content area.
A number of contacts are using some things that some existing vendors they're really enjoy, embrace, those kind of things. And they see now that those vendors that they have are not on the list, and so they're concerned about that. So a communication on the webinar, probably multiple times, would be appropriate.
Well, and I think the board needs to, needs to be updated on how many, how many subscriptions are out there, what the feedback is from the district, and those kinds of things that would let you know if it's being beneficial, and what being what the contract calls for.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I just hear we're committed to the 3 years period, spending the 30.
It's
$1
renewed
million.
annually depending
We can-
on,
And after year one, we said we don't want it, and we're not.
well, if nobody's using it, I
We're
mean,
not
that
going
would
to pay
be.
for the subscription if
Yeah,
it's not
we're not
renewed.
paying
I
for
just
something
thought I
we're not
heard we had
using.
to pay for
Right.
3
No,
years.
right.
period.
No.
Okay.
No.
And we're paying for it on a monthly basis, and we have language in the contracts to be able to opt out.
Okay, that's
Right.
what I thought I read, but then I thought I heard the difference. Okay.
What I'm hearing is that, and I'm just making sure we're clear, I'm just going to use the number 10, which is not the number to use, but if we start off with number 10, with 10 students in our state using this, we pay that subscription. If at the end of this year, we're down to 6, we're still only paying for that 6, and we do not lose the money on the 4 that opted out. Because it's done by the subscription, so they're not stuck to that forever. Am I pretty accurate right there, is what we're saying? On a yearly basis?
That's a Dr. Gavin question.
Yes, we are only paying it based on usage, and we do, I turned to my legal counsel, we do have language to opt out, right? That's correct.
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Ms. Werner, for bringing that up. That cleared up a lot of questions that were not related to your questions, so. Okay, we have item 4, which includes 4A through K minus E. So, do I have a motion to approve these items? We'll take them all in one motion.
Excuse me, do you mind not taking them all in one motion?
Oh, okay.
I would prefer that the I, J, and K
Be separate?
be separate.
Okay, well, then we will do 4, if that's the will of the board.
That's fine.
Okay, all right, we'll take items A through H and vote on them, then we'll vote separately on I, J, and K. So do I have a motion to approve items A, B, C, D, F, G, H?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? Okay. Any other questions or comments on those? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, then we'll take I, J, and K under a separate motion. We have a motion to approve those 3.
So moved.
Okay, Dr. Bass and Mr. East. Any other questions or comments on those? All in favor? Aye. Okay, any opposed?
I'm going to abstain because I'm still not happy.
Oh, okay.
I'll abstain as well.
Okay, all right, so we have,
I'm going to abstain on that
oh,
one.
wait a minute, all right, let's start over. By a show of hands on I, J, and K, those in favor, raise your hand. So that's 4.
Is Wendy's hand up?
Wendy, is she on? Is
Yes,
she
she
back
was.
on?
She was on.
There she is,
Yeah.
okay. All right, so that's 5. And then those opposed or abstaining, so that's 3. Mr. Jacobs, did you, 3?
She didn't count herself.
It's 6.
It's,
but
you
didn't
forgot to count yourself.
Well, I typically don't vote, no.
Okay.
Yeah. So, motion carries 5-3. The abstentions typically go with the prevailing side.
Let the record show, they're abstaining or they're not disapproving?
They
Not
say,
approving.
well, are you, abstaining is what they say.
Abstaining is one thing.
You're
Abstaining
abstaining,
is
you're
another.
abstaining, and you're abstaining.
All right,
Yeah.
I just think
I'm
that
not
the
saying
record
no, I'm
is
just
clear.
Yeah,
not clear on it.
5-3. Well, 4 and 3 abstaining.
Yes.
Okay.
5.
5 and 3.
5. That's right. Mr. Miller, Mr. East, Wendy, Dr. Elam, and Dr. Bass. Yeah, okay. All right, let's move on then to item 5.
Mr. Chairman, I think I have to make the long walk out the room
Okay.
for these items because I think the Gulfport School District is mentioned in some of these. So
Okay.
the best thing for me, I think the word is I have to recuse myself.
That's
so
right.
I-
Let the record show that
If y'all
Mr.
want me
East
to go
is
to sleep out
recusing.
there, I'll come back and.
We'll get you. Okay, these are grants. Dr. Gavin, if you'll just take us take us A through H, please.
Yes, ma'am. The first item, and most of these grants are, again, the utilization of our 9.5% set aside for Esser funds for Esser 2 as well as Esser 3. The first item is to award grants on behalf of pre-K classrooms. So we're awarding 24 awards there for a total of $3 million. The second grant is actually for the 21st century. We're awarding seven sites there for 21st century grant funds, for a new round of 21st century grant funds. Item 5C is to award grants for the ARP homeless, and this is associated with Esser. Item 5D is also an Esser grant. We're awarding one grant there on behalf for the migrant program. Item 5E is to award 2 grants for the delinquent program, and those are using Esser funds. Item 5F is to award 2 grants for nonprofit workforce professional development grant. This is coming from the Office of CTE. And item 5G, you heard a little bit about this earlier from the presentation, but we're awarding 5 grants to 5 institutions of higher learning on behalf of the Mississippi Teacher Residency Program. And the last item is also using Esser funds, and this is to award grants to several school districts, 22, I think, for the school nurse program to help them provide nurses across the districts.
Okay, questions on any of these? Ms. Werner?
Naturally.
Go ahead.
Okay, on 5D, under the migrant program, would you explain that to me, please?
Dr. Bitten, I will turn to my colleague to explain that one. Is Judy here?
Yep, Judy's
Okay.
Miss
Judy, you need to come to the mic.
Our director of the Office of Federal Programs, which oversees the work with migrant education.
So we only have one migrant education center that was awarded competitively 2 years ago. So that migrant center is at Mississippi State University. So that's why those migrant. Oh,
It's at Mississippi State?
University. That's the Migrant Education Service Center. So they provide services to the migrant students all throughout Mississippi.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on any of these items?
I have a question about 5E, where the Department of Corrections, there's a grant for Department of Corrections to address some impact that COVID-19 has had. Can you talk a little bit about what
So
that
those are-
is in that contract? Yeah.
So those are our state delinquent facilities. They receive Title I Part D funds. So those facilities also, we want to make sure that they're providing services because those students were impacted by COVID as well. So we have 2 facilities. One is operated by the Department of Correction, and the other facility is directed by the Department of Human Services.
And this is just additional funding for the programs that are already in place.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions or comments on these items? Okay, then we'll entertain a motion to approve items 5A. Okay. All right, and we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Dr. McGee and Dr. Bass. Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, next we have our consent agenda. These items A through U. Do you have any questions on these before we call for a motion, actually? Okay, then we'll entertain a motion for 6, A through U. Oh, that's right. Somebody, you bringing him in? Thank you. Let Mr. East get back in the room. He's-
It's coming from loudspeaker.
Well, I saw. Well, I saw Mr. East had his telephone up to his ear, and I thought we were honing in on his conversation somehow. Okay, we're on consent agenda. Consent agenda items A through U. Wait just a minute. T, yeah, A through T. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other questions? Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now, item U, do we have anything to report on that? or
No,
is
it's
it-
just-
Okay,
it's just
just
backup
info, okay, backup material. Okay. No executive session. Okay, so we don't have to have an executive session today. I think this is a first. So, we get to, are there any reports on meetings attended anywhere across the state? Okay. We do need to approve our training session, our retreat that I mentioned on February the 25th. We have Robert Hull coming, who is Director of the National School Boards Association, who will be our facilitator. So we need a motion to approve having this retreat on February 25th, starting at 9 a.m. It will be held in the conference room at the Butler Snow facility in Ridgeland.
So moved.
Okay?
Second.
Second? All right.
I have a question.
I'm sorry?
I have a question.
Okay.
It starts at 9. What time will it end?
I have no idea. I would say be prepared
That is
for
Friday.
be prepared for a long day.
I have a question. Do student reps come to this one?
I don't know if they have in the past. Well,
I don't think we had a.
Student rep.
Okay.
That's probably up to you, depending on what your schedule is at the time. Okay? All right, we need a motion to approve this. Did we get a motion? Mr. Jacobs, did you, and a second?
Yes, I
Okay,
second
all
it.
right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, our January board meeting will be held on the 20th here in this room. So I hope that you all have a wonderful Christmas with the people that you love, and that everybody, we're grateful that we're able to get together this year, and
don't forget to take home your happies.
yeah.
I was gonna say, are you not gonna say anything?
The happy is,
Yeah, just Merry Christmas from me, and thank you again for, your support, and enjoy. This has become a tradition at Christmas time, but really, I hope you all enjoy your family, get some time for rest. That's the message I've been giving to staff, because we got to be ready to jump back into it come January, and just thank you once again for everything that you do for us and for the students of the state. Appreciate it.
okay, we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Lunch, are we having lunch?
Yes, lunch is in 311.
Yeah.